Welcome back. Today, I want to talk about how to manage shooting in different white balances. So, what is the best approach when photographing a subject in a room where, let's say, the lights inside have different hues and the light coming in from the outside, or even sometimes all the lights inside have different light bulbs emitting different hues and tints and Kelvin temperatures. So, what is the best thing to do? This is what I'm going to do. Anyways, there is no right or wrong. I guess what's best for me and my approach is what I'm going to talk about. The best thing to do for me in my approach is whenever I walk into any room, I always turn every light source off. Every light source that I can control is going to be off. I personally much rather shoot in a darker room than to shoot in a room full of mediocre light. Now, I say that because I don't want crappy light to affect the skin tones of my subjects, to emit just unflattering light onto the skin. I rather shoot in a darker room, embrace that, and make it more of a moody photo as opposed to try to work on the back end during post production and make something that I could have done better look right, just by simply having originally turned off lights or incorporating a speed light of my own or just embracing that one external source of light that you have no control over. Let's begin with this example right here. So this room was a very dimly lit room to begin with. It had three different sources of light indoors. One was recessed lighting up on the ceiling. The other source was a lamp, which you can kind of see in the corner over here. And all three sources, so the recessed light, the ceiling fan, and this lamp right here, all had different light bulbs within them. Some were LED daylight, so they were a little bit cooler. The lamp here had this light bulb that was very tungsten, very yellowish, and had a little bit of a purple hue to it. And the fan itself was much cooler and it had a green tint to it. So you're talking about three different white balances and color tone mixes that are just not going to mesh together. Sometimes they're opposing each other. So it makes for really unflattering skin tones. Not to mention, as you see here, the main source of light was this sliding window, allowing a lot of natural sunlight coming in. And that light, I mean, daylight, so it's 5600 Kelvin, right? It's gonna be trying to rival this really yellow, warm orangey light from the light bulbs inside the room. So I just embrace the darkness and turn off all the lights inside the room and end up working with that one light source, which is my window. Then I will show you also I include my speed light in different manners of using it, with some more direct hits of that flash, some bouncing off of a ceiling or a wall to have a different, softer or harder effect, to get a larger diversity of a look within the same room. So I started by doing this, right? So this is a good example of turning off all the lights and creating something beautiful in a dramatic lighting scenario. So this is it right here, having the bride face the window so you can get that nice rim light on the profile. The light is kind of fading as it goes into the room right here. So you have the nice gradient and she kind of pops from this entire room. I use this door right here to kind of block off the rest of the window, which would in turn just draw your eye towards the bride rather than the hot spot, which would have been that window. If I took it without that door in the way, the window would have been super bright. In a realistic or in a idealistic world, I would have shifted over to my left a little bit, ensuring that that door covered the entire window without cutting off the flowers. But, sometimes you don't have time to make things perfect. And art, I believe, is the most beautiful when it's not perfect. So this is another photo that I took with multiple different white balances. In the bathroom, there was, as you see, the mirror lights that were very nice and clean daylight. So it was like 56 Kelvin, 56, so 5,600 Kelvin temp. And then they had the overhead lights up here that were a little bit more orange. And it had the bedroom lights, which is where I'm standing, and then the light coming in from the window that, in comparison to the other light over here, because it was kind of shaded, there was no direct sunlight coming into the room. It was all kind of the shaded side of the hotel. So the light was a lot cooler coming in from the outside. So what I did here was I turned off all the bedroom lights, and then I went ahead and I turned off all the lights except these mirror lights here in the bathroom. And the bathroom was nice and bright and white on this side of it, so opposing the mirrors, which made it for that light to refract and just bounce all over, lighting the backside of her, but having that also that backlight only look to it. Turned off all the bedroom lights outside of that, depending on just one source of lighting, managing my white balance to match just that bathroom source. And then, okay, let's go into the develop module. And here we go. So once again, this is an example of what I do when I want to get creative. So normally I would have just turned off all the lights and shot everywhere else. But in this situation, the bride went into the bathroom and I kind of saw the way that the mirror light was working, and I thought that would work. So I isolated to one source of white balance, and then if you look here, this is before, right? The outside of the room had, in comparison to the white balance of the inside of the bathroom, was a lot bluer, right? So it's really, really yellow inside, really blue on the outside. So I did a couple of things to mitigate that. In a scenario where it's a straight line, one of the things that I did was I went ahead and I used linear gradients to actually get rid of some of that coloring. So I went ahead and I brought my exposure down on both gradients here, both linear gradients, and I also warmed it up to counter the blue in it and warm it up and make it a little bit more matchy to the inside of the bathroom light. The other thing that you will see that I did here was using point color. What you do here is you click on the dropper and you point it to whatever color you want to adjust. So this is a local adjustment, which means it just selects that one thing and only that one thing gets affected by whatever change you make, as opposed to a global adjustment which will affect the entire photo itself, right? So the local adjustment is picking that one specific thing you want to adjust within the picture. I selected these two shades of blue and I went ahead and I desaturated. I also did a little bit of a green here and I desaturated. You see the saturation shift, -63. On this one was a little more abrupt, -99 and -90. So the reason I went really hard on desaturating that blue, and I'll show you here what it looks like without it, right? You can see that. The reason I went so hard on desaturating that blue, which I normally wouldn't do that much if it included something blue or something green that I'm trying to remain unaffected within the photo. Being so that the bride only was wearing white, there's nothing blue on the bride, there's nothing green on the bride. So desaturating those shades of colors aren't going to affect my subject or the realism look of the picture. If there was a groom wearing a blue suit, you most likely wouldn't be able to desaturate using point of color because it'll, inevitably affect some of the blue shades within the suit. So that's when you would want to use brushes or gradient filters, linear gradients, and that sort of thing to desaturate just the areas that you want to target. So this is an example where you're working with two different white balances. You're going to work with getting creative with a light source that's not, from your camera or from outdoors. And that's how I would mitigate that. So a mixture of selecting one light source that I'm going to prioritize on my white balance and then dealing with the rest in post, which, it can be time consuming, but this being that one shot that I wanted to try, it's not like I'm going to spend hours on the back end editing every single photo. This is just one photo in the gallery I wanted to try out. And it worked out. I thought I really liked it. Most people, usually in a scenario like this, would just turn it black and white. Nothing wrong with that. It's a beautiful photo, saves you some time. But I always like to give both black and white and color. So I went ahead and edited this one the way that I thought would look best. And that's without all that blue tint and light leaking on the front end. This is what it would look like with just that one white balance, but you can kind of see in the reflection there the blue coming in from the outside, right? Those lights were actually really, really bright. So that's another reason why it looked good. Usually when they're like dim lights and you're pushing your settings, it starts to look a little grungy on the skin tones. Having the dark room, having turned off everything, then I'm using here the window light to just isolate one source, only using that as my go-to white balance setting on the camera. And now I have a nice evenly lit, and the color on the skin, it looks natural. The colors in the room don't look mixed up because there aren't different light sources lighting up the room. So the walls in the background don't look super orange in comparison to the white on the bride. So that's the thing. It's if I kept the lights on, the background would have looked super orange because my white balance is set to that outdoor light, which is a lot cooler than the indoor light. Okay, so isolating those light sources will enable you to have a more evenly lit and balanced, color balanced photo. Here I added my Godox V1 flash unit on top of my camera, some of that more popular straight on flash that people seem to love right now. I'm actually having a ton of fun with it. I used to be super anti-camera on my flash on my camera, but now I'm having a ton of fun. It's a really good way to get creative in an easy, fast manner. So that's what I did here, popping the light straight at the bride. Then we did this more dramatic shot. Then I came back around. So I'm standing where this little coffee table is here. Boom, come back around, and we're shooting with that light, looking back to get some of those dramatic shadows on the face. Now angle to the window. And here is another shot from the back, same window. So instead of standing there, I backed up, right? And what I did here was I had my flash on the camera, but this time I'm not shooting the flash straight at the bride. What I wanted to do is I wanted to achieve more of a soft, natural like look and effect. So I went ahead and I did that by exposing for the outdoor light. So I'm not quite, you can see the outside is still kind of blown out a little bit. I want it to look natural. I didn't want it to look where the outside is perfectly exposed and now my flash matches that, because then it starts to look a little bit fake and it's pretty obvious that it's with flash. So my trick to make it look a little more natural is I overexpose the background as you would when you're shooting backlit, right? The background is always going to be a little bit higher than your shadows. So shooting from the shaded side, adding my light and bouncing it off that white ceiling with a slight 45-degree angle back to make it even softer and rain down all over the room a little bit softer right there. And it kind of blends in. There's no harsh shadows or anything like that as you would have if you pointed the light straight at the bride. It's a lot softer, a lot more flattering, and a lot more natural looking. Same effect here. 45 degrees back from me. So it's not straight up, just a slight 45-degree back. And I believe here I had the Magsphere, so the Magmod Magsphere on it to kind of soften up and enlarge the source a little bit. But that's pointing back and bouncing back, and you see how it looks very natural, looks very soft. It's no hard shadows or anything like that. The light is bouncing off the white and reflecting back over us here and raining down and making it really nice. You can kind of see if you look up here, it's kind of reflecting off the ceiling there. You see that hot spot. But once again, overexposing the exterior to kind of give it that natural look that you would get when you're shooting backlit. Does that same shot, no flash. Boom, so turning off the flash for a little more dramatic effect. And now we're back to that window light with that nice dramatic look. One thing that I've done for white balance matching in weddings, especially during reception times where you're stuck inside, you can't turn the lights off, because that's what people say. It's like, what if you can't turn the lights off? What if it's a reception and you're in a ballroom and you cannot turn the lights off? You can't just be like, oh, let's make this room dark and only flash it, right? You can't do that. So that's what you want to first figure out what the native white balance or temperature reading for your flashes that you use is. Okay. Then you want to invest on some CTO gels. So I have quarter CTO, half CTO, full CTO. I have a ton of these gels. Obviously, the higher the number goes, the more orange. So it's CTO stands for color tone orange. The half is going to be less orange than the full CTO, and the quarter will be even less than the half. Okay. So you figure out what temperature that ambient light is, and then you can drop these CTO gels on your flash to match the warmth of the ambient light. Okay. Because most flashes are usually around daylight. So it's like 5,500 to 5,600, 5,400 Kelvin. So when you add these, then you're going to end up in like a 3,800 or 4,000 Kelvin temp, matching that tungsten lighting indoor. And now you have all the sources matching. So not only whatever your flash hits is going to be nice and white, but if you're shooting the dress of the bride and you don't have a gel on and you're not exposed, you're set to your white balance to the flash's white balance, which is like, let's say daylight 56, 5,500 Kelvin. Now, whatever your flash touches is going to look true to color, true white, right? But anything the ambient light that tungsten bulbs is touching, that's going to be orange. So if you're shooting a white of a room and your flash is lighting your bride will be true to white balance that's set to your camera, but everything else that your flash isn't hitting is going to look really orange, okay? So that's when you want to make this happen. Pop these on your light, and now you're balanced to the light from the ceiling, from the room. And when you take that photo, now you set your white balance to the room white balance. You match it using your CTOs on your flash. And now not only what you shoot and your flash touches, everything is going to be in that same kind of white balance temp, looking nice and even. Okay, so this is a situation here where I use gels on my lights because the only light source available was the lights within the canopies, a couple of string lights, and they were all very, very orange. So I dropped a half CTO gel on all three of my lights to match that. So that way, you notice even here, I could have probably gone 3/4 CTO, almost one full CTO, right? Because when you look, comparison, the white balance, the color balancing, the skin tones on my couple, on the bride and her dad during the father-daughter dance, right? And the guests in the back, there is a slight shift where the guests are still a little bit orange. If I didn't have any gels, they would be super Oompa Loompa in comparison to the bride and her father. Some people say, hey, you know what? Why even bother with all of this? I can just black and white it and be done with it. Well, the problem with that is I've run into this before where you black and white it, you deliver it, and then next thing you know, you have a couple that requires the color photo. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna deliver it, right? But you might end up delivering something that you're not happy with or that you spend a ton of time trying to make look right because you didn't use the proper lighting techniques. Okay. So I always say, assume when I do a black and white, I deliver it in color because multiple times I've delivered just black and white and they've asked me for the color version. And a lot of times I notice people deliver black and whites. This might be hot button topic or whatever you call it. But I think that a lot of times that people are delivering black and white photos is because they have really bad lighting situation and the skin tones look funky. So black and white is the easy way out. When in doubt, black and white it. It's a joke within the industry. People say it all the time, but I find it to be very, very true. I've done it many times. But now I'm very picky and I deliver both color and black and white. And that's why I make sure to get it right from the beginning. So I had the light on my camera and then one behind him to add that separation, but still. So you notice one thing here is there's no gels on my flashes, right? So the sky is a lot bluer than the light being emitted from my gels. So the white balance, if I was doing it for the sky, it'd probably be closer to 4,000, where from my flash, it's at 56, 5,500, right? If my flash is at 56 or 5,500 Kelvin and the sky is supposed to be at 4,000 or 3,800 Kelvin, you'll see the difference, right? The couple is nice and bright, and the white balance is white. The whites are white, right? The colors are true to tone and to what they should be, but the sky is really, really, really blue. Now, I personally like that look. It makes it look cool. I find that a lot of people like my couples like that. So I purposely leave the gels off of the lights during this kind of twilight time. Sometimes I'll add them if there's a lot of like really orangey glows or interesting glows to the sky, just to really capture as is. But if there isn't any cool colors happening, this kind of makes it look a little more romantic, mystic, or special. So that's one of the things that I do. But anyways, always, prioritize one light source. Pick whatever it is that you want to be working with and turn off the rest if you have the option. If you don't have the option, don't be afraid to use your flash. And if you do use your flash, don't be afraid to use your color tone orange or any other kind of gels that you want to use to make sure that your lighting is balanced. So that's what I do to mitigate different white balances in a room or throughout a wedding situation. If you have any more questions about this specific topic or any thoughts about it, I would love to hear it, and I would love to dive deeper into it. As I said at the beginning of this video, there is no right or wrong way, just whatever works for you and what you like to do. It's art. Everybody does it differently. So if you don't agree with this, that's okay. Keep on shooting the way that you like. If you do find it helpful, hope you apply it and that this helps you out on your wedding days or any other shoots that you're doing. Anyways, enjoy it and have a great day.